We now have a town hall with the Honorable Finance Minister. This is an interactive session between members of industry, faculty, and students of IIT Madras, where the Finance Minister will take up some questions from the audience. We are honored to have with us Shri Ganapati Ramchandran, who will moderate this session for us. I invite him to the stage. He is a graduate of IIT Madras, batch of 1977, and has many credentials to his credit.
May I invite Charu Datta, a final year student of IIT Madras, to come forward and ask a question.
Namaste, ma'am. I am Charu Datta, final year student. My question is that, can the CSR funds be used for independent student projects or to support their industries, internships, if these projects are somewhat aligned to the sustainable development goals?
I can't see anything that will stop it. If the board is ready and if the institution has already received the money, it's up to the university to, or the institution to decide where it would make any sense. So, an individual student is not barred from getting it.
I now invite from LTI, Mr. Pratyush Panda. Would you like to take the mic to him?
Madam, namaste. I am Pratyush Panda, representing LTI Mindtree. Before raising this question, I have spoken to more than 50 CSR heads in last 1.5 years to know why they are not funding any incubations, what are the challenges they are facing. So there are certain uncertainties we all talking about is, one is uncertainty of timeline. Second was the uncertainty of fund utilization in time, say by March, or else money will come back from IIT Madras to ex-corporate, then they have to deposit in escrow account. Third one is uncertainty of impact. No corporates want to show that this innovation got failed and put that report on website. So for this, we were thinking if this incubation CSR funding is treated as par with kind of PMRF kind of status, so that once money is given, there is no need of going for 1 crore plus for impact assessment and put the report on site. I think more and more fund will flow towards centrally accredited incubations like IITs.
There are two things which come in my mind. One is a straightforward answer. The other is a bit cheeky if you'll allow it. The first one is, if the project for which the money is being given can be genuinely described as long-term, you don't need to return the fund or you don't need to put it in common government-recognized funds. And as it is, I think it allows for 3 full years in that way. It's already allocated for that project, and it will probably run for 3 years. It cannot get completed within 12 months, is entertained as you can carry it forward for 3 years. But if you've not even decided, meaning if the company has not even decided where you're going to put the money, and you're left over with it at the end of the year, then we say put it in a common account and send it off to PMNR for whatever government-recognized products. So that's my straightforward, because there are many hospitals which are being funded. Obviously, they cannot construct it in 12 months. We allow it to be carried forward the next year and the year after that as well. And in this day and age, technology is such that you can certainly finish even a big construction project for 3 years, within 3 years, such as hospitals. So we thought that was a reasonable time. It allows for the 3 years. The cheeky bit is, it's also a question of mindset change for companies. You don't want to show it as a flop. I mean, come on, we are telling startups to say, whether you are successful or not, come do it. And through IBC, we are giving you a graceful exit policy as well. Nobody in this country is going to say, oh, this is a flop person, this fellow failed in this industry. None. We are saying, change your mindset. Newer things will have to come up, meaning some will have to shut down, some will have to be restarted, or some will have to be completely forgotten and new things have to be done. So if you're encouraging that mindset through your startup policy, old industries which are funding them should also be ready to say, yes, we funded this, but sorry, it couldn't take off. We will again fund something similar, and I'm sure we'll take off. So it's more a question of you being ready to say honestly, it was genuinely given. Sorry, it didn't take off. No harm. That's not going to affect your core business. So be cheeky about it.
We now invite Dr. Smita Srivastava.
Good evening, madam. I'm a faculty in the Department of Biotechnology at IIT Madras. Madam, is it possible to make it mandatory through your office that some part of the CSR spent by the public and private enterprises goes into R&D projects, especially high-risk, high-reward projects happening at institutes of eminence like IIT Madras and others?
Why has it come to that state? Institute of Excellence don't draw?
Actually, in the morning, we were looking at the data, and the data shows that only 1% of the CSR spend goes into R&D projects. So can it be made mandatory, which will be a push for the industry to spend higher amount of their CSR spend into R&D projects at the institutes where the probability of conversion is higher?
To my best knowledge, and to be fair to industry, it's also a question of, I'm looking at it. Now, industry, be happy. Please do listen to me now. I'm talking for you. You know, actually, industry has been told by the government through this competition law, companies law, saying spend 2% of your funds. It should go for CSR. Guys were unhappy, I'm sure. But they've readily agreed. And they're spending. Now, to be fair to them, I've read out the quantum they've spent, more than 1.25 lakhs. The board of the company creates a smaller sub-board which looks into this. I most often find that the sub-board has not even been contacted by any of R&D people saying, hey, look, this is worthy. Will you put the money here? It's also a question of both getting to know each other. Many charitable hospitals have convinced and got a lot of resources. It can be even more for them. Similarly, I would honestly appeal to biotechnology-related departments, at least in those Institute of Excellence such as IIT Madras, to tap the top 500 Indian companies to say, where's your CSR going? Would you please consider us? No harm. You may not as an academic want to do it, but I'm sure you have a person who's taking care of these projects.
Right.
So they should actually be more proactive. It doesn't come on its own. It's all
Absolutely agree.
Telugu. You're a Telugu man. I'm daring to talk about it. Talli kuda adugakka pettadu. You understand a bit of it? No.
No.
Even a mother will not give unless she is asked for, hey, I'm hungry, give me some food. So if that is the nature of things, no harm. There are many, I know a lot of members of parliament who have pounded these companies saying, come and do this in my constituency. They've done it. So please do be a lot more proactive. And I'm sure companies have heard you. They'll also be ready now to give.
I'm sure through you it must happen.
But biotechnology is a big area now. We need to have a lot more work done in it. I think at least those who are located in IIT-like institutions should be helped out.
In fact,
Thank you,
madam, to layer what you said, the biotechnology department in Madurai Kamaraj University is internationally renowned. So I think we were there in the curve along with the others, but we always have the knack of leapfrogging. You know, we didn't go to CDMA, we went straight to GSM. So I think we are good at that. I'm sure we'll leapfrog. We now go back to a student. Mithali has a question for us.
Hello ma'am, I'm Mithali, a third-year student. As you know, many students are involved in like several startup activities. So can government provide some support to these companies by like underwriting the initial debt for working capital?
Underwriting the initial debt for capital. Now they do it for equity. They get for equity quite a lot of fund of funds, and SIDBI and others are giving. Now you're asking for debt. Let some company tell me how they handle such situations. Please sit down. Let me ask some companies where there is a debt requirement. How do you handle it? And how is it that now if I enable something through underwriting, you will be better placed?
A banker sitting there, Madam.
Yeah.
Mr. Kamakoti is there.
Ma'am, let me attempt again like a tongue-in-cheek answer. Entrepreneurship is all about risks. We can't be like, say, I'll keep all the equity, I'll let somebody else underwrite the risk. No banker will sign off on it unless you show some proof of concept before getting into a debt-related funding. So, unfortunately, there's no right answer to it.
From business, there's no straight answer for it. But the business is not using an opportunity to tell me, look, I can't take the risk, but if you do X, Y, Z, maybe then I will come in. He's not even taking that opportunity.
I think
Can a
Raghu will
banker
talk
tell
on.
me about it?
Raghu is there. Professor Raghu is there.
Let's hear the bank first.
Yeah. Okay, bank.
You have the schemes like CGT MSC, particularly when, which is up to 1 crore, there are various conditions and all. If the startup fills up, like say many of these things, particularly like you don't need a collateral, you don't need a thing, but there are few things which are available up to a level. But normally, like as he said, even if you look into the most of the technology companies and all, like you also started, the equity part, like say those particularly the high risk, high return companies are funded more by equity than the debt to start with. But still you have this particular item of the credit guarantee scheme which is available,
CGTMS.
which it takes up to certain level.
Madam, what she wants is without any guarantee.
No, that's CGTMS.
Without any conditions, rather.
No, CGTMS, the Credit Guarantee Fund from the Ministry of Small and Medium Industries, MSME, actually aims
Provides
at
for-
providing without your security, sovereign guaranteed fund for as a debt to the promoters. That's there. But I'm under the impression, and I'll have to double check this, these are for companies whose valuations are not disputable.
Correct.
But when it comes to the question of startups, valuation, I'm not saying is disputable, but valuation is done on a different formulation altogether. You're still not producing anything, but the idea is a fantastic idea. So the
Pre-revenue.
valuation goes on something else.
She wants it at pre-revenues.
That's right. So your requirement for a sovereign guaranteed debt is much before your product is out and you start earning out of it. Whereas CGTMS is more for those who are already in the production and selling and earning
They've
mode.
gone to market.
Yeah. So your question still remains.
Madam, you can recall that when we met from the Madras, IIT Madras Entrepreneurs Forum, Raghu piloted this to you. Raghu.
Yeah, madam, in terms of debt, you're perfectly right, and the gentleman is also right. Debt has an obligation to be paid back. I worked in credit rating for 20 years, so I come from that world. But there's innovation that's possible. When you have grant funding, right, and then you have debt funding, and then you have equity funding, they all have different risk return characteristics attached to it. So the scope for innovation here, along with a guarantee or without a guarantee, can be, there's something called venture debt. A venture debt is a kind of funding that comes in for startups, well-established route, where you see the potential for high growth funding. It comes in as debt and could get converted to equity, usually it does, right? But maybe there's innovation where debt gets converted to grant. So I don't see the lady's request for seed capital, the first capital coming in as debt, but subsequently, when some de-risking has happened, when the genuineness of venture is reasonably established, the risk is not gone, but I think there is scope for a debt fund, a quasi-debt and grant fund, which has a unique characteristics of a financial instrument. I think there's scope for India to innovate here.
Madam, actually, we have submitted a, correct. Actually, we have sent a memorandum as part of your pre-budget exercise to Mr. Somanath, and I'm sure it will come up for some review at some point of time. Yes, madam. Raghu has prepared a document, which we'll send it again to your office. Of course, we now have a question from a banker. Maybe he's going to solve it. Mr. Anuj from ICICI.
Good evening. Very inspirational speech. I am Anuj Agarwal. I represent ICICI Foundation, the CSR arm for ICICI group companies. We are very proud to actually showcase to you at Kohima, Nagaland, when you were there in August, some of our CSR activities there, and probably you'll see something here as well. Just to mention, because you had brought up the subject of aspirational districts, ICICI Foundation is today working in 35 and more aspirational districts, trying to alleviate the citizens from the situation over there. As far as the question is concerned, on the CSR regulations, MCA had issued certain FAQs last year in 2021, and one of them was related to gap funding on government schemes.
Could you, in the interest of time, would you like to make it brief so that...
So I think the industry today needs some clarity on what is gap funding, because partnering with the government on many of such activities actually can multiply the impact which is there on the ground. So if you can throw some light on that what is the thought behind that and how it can be addressed would be extremely helpful.
May not be the best time for me to say how to address it.
Correct.
But discussions may be carrying forward. We'll see how it works out.
In the interest of time, because she has a hard stop in a few minutes, we'll skip a few questions, but one last question, obviously it has to be the student. The other questions, we'll bundle it and send it to your office, and we'll await a reply and pass it on.
1 minute, don't mind me asking you. Each time you call a student for questioning, you seem to put it as a disclaimer.
No, madam.
It has to be a student.
I'm
at the beginning, it has to be a student at the end.
No.
It has to be a student.
No, I'm focusing the students, giving importance to students. In fact, I remember last time when I had this opportunity, you skipped us and went to students of Etiraj College. So that's why I'm now inviting Kimaya of IIT to ask what will be the last question for the evening.
Namaste, ma'am. I'm Kimaya, a third-year student. My question is...
Before you ask the question, just you may not like me asking you, but very interesting, unusual name.
Thank you,
What does
ma'am.
it mean?
It means magic.
Huh? Magic?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow. And in which language, if I may ask?
Ma'am, I think it's translated in Sanskrit. I'm not very sure about it.
Really? Okay. And from where are you?
I'm from Pune, Maharashtra.
Maharashtra. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Very nice. Kimaya, the magic.
Thank you, ma'am. So my question is, how do you think companies can strike a balance between here and now charity, like buying food or buying clothes, and the midterm CSR projects, which will have a long-term impact?
So how do I think what?
How can the company strike a balance between...
I'm sure they're capable of doing it. See, here and now happens when there is a emergency, a pandemic, a cyclone, a tsunami, or a mountain slip, landslide. Then of course here and now operates. But otherwise they're looking at long-term, medium-term funding for creation of assets which can create jobs in turn, which can provide critical care and so on. So balancing is not difficult. It is necessitated by the exigencies of the time, I would think.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. That was very interesting. Unfortunately, we have to cut for lack of time. I would request the Finance Minister to present Mr. Ganapathy a memento on behalf of IIT Madras. I now invite our director, Professor Kamakoti, to present a memento and a special gift to our chief guest. This memento being presented is a Pattamadai fine korai grass mat wall hanging woven by women weavers of Pattamadai using the electronic jacquard handlooms developed by the Rural Technology Action Group. This project was funded by Tamil Nadu Handicrafts Development Corporation.